on this computer. We have the recording from last week, and many of you asked some wonderful questions. Now, can you all hear me okay? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure you hear me very, very well. Well, I've been very, very busy in the last week too, making some videos. So I asked you to watch some videos, not too long. I think the total amount was an hour and 10 minutes. Is that correct? Is that right? Yes. Okay, good, good, good. All right. So because I didn't want to spend all of the time we have tonight, just me giving you a lecture. I can go for hours, but it's better I give you some videos and then come in, we have some more interaction, because you asked some great questions last week. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to cover, I think we're going to do it in 3 parts. The first part is we will go over some of the assessment just to clarify the fieldwork report or what's expected of you for the main project, and because that will help you when you're choosing your groups. Okay, put your hand up, put your thumb up if you already have some group in mind. Okay, you've already been thinking, good, doing some work, great, great, great. Okay, so therefore my job is to actually tell you, well, what do you do when you're in that group? Okay, and part of the first hour is I want to go over some of the questions you asked last week, because I think you asked some very, very interesting questions, and it's very, very good. In the middle part, we'll quickly go over the, we'll just review a little bit of last week, but also we'll go over the first part of the material for this week, and you'll be doing some breakout teamwork. I have some questions for you. You break out in teams, come back, and then you will participate. And then the final part, we can spend a little bit more time on the blockchain. And also I've got another insight that I want to share with you associated with that. Okay, does that sound like a plan for today? What I'm going to do is put the sharing screen on. Wait a minute, Zoom meeting. Okay, we share the screen, and okay, can you see that? Wonderful. Okay, so what I've got here is the PowerPoint. All right, so let's, that's something I'm going to tell you later about, but that's not right now. Okay, so tonight is kind of an extension of last week, and we're taking a big picture view of the supply chain, especially now that we've got to talk about pre-COVID, post-COVID. Everything's going to be a change. We cannot really teach supply chain management out of a textbook based on what's happened with COVID. Okay, I can tell you, the people, I was just speaking to 2 people in the last week about the problems of being able to physically visit suppliers in China or in Vietnam. I've got a friend in Vietnam I was talking to this afternoon, and he's making good business because he's stuck in Vietnam and he can serve his clients because he can go straight to the factory. So post-COVID, it's a huge, totally different world now. And I think that's very, very important for us to realize and factor that into, why we're learning what we're learning. You've got to be able to take this stuff away with you. Let me just swap the presenter and view around. Okay. So quickly, let's just go over some of the assessment, clarify things again. Then I have a quick review. Then we've got some big questions to go over, and that's where we're getting to part 1 and part 2, the second hour and third hour tonight. Okay, what I've done very briefly, the group fieldwork project, I am encouraging everyone to try and focus on A or B. Okay, C is possible. That's more of a backup strategy. Like I've got the factory visit videos and interviews. I've got, if you count the videos I have on YouTube, I have 750 videos. So I've got lots of videos, and I have 40 factories that I have videoed. So that's what I used last year as a backup for some of the groups. But I hope that none of your groups will be interested in that. You might be interested in more of the other aspects here. Now, if you come to me with another idea that I haven't listed here, that's okay. You can talk to me about that. But let me show you what a final report looks like. Okay, so this is a fieldwork project. Can you all see that? Hello? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right. Now, this is what I make sure, because sometimes okay. So notice that how many pages is this? 1 to 12. So less than 10 pages. You know, the title's one page, the end is another page. So now, what we start, here, let me just view. Okay, so this was a field work of one of the students' factories in Bangladesh. And they talked about the problem statement and then introduction, complex, their framework. They talked about their customer. Why? Because that was associated with their problem statement. Remember, it's not what you see here is a result of what they have identified as their problem statement. Okay, so the problem statement is as follows. The factory faces several challenges, such as specialized production line, factory floor layout, different demands, lead, volume, separate quality control payment procedures. Okay. So there's a bit of introduction, there's context. I always ask for some diagram is very, very important early on. Then the factory introduction, details of the factory, comparison of two of their major customers with respect to their problem statement, and observations, observation 1, observation 2, observation 3, a summary of that, and conclusion. Notice, I don't tell you you have to write 2,000 words or 3,000 words. I focus more on you getting to the point and using a table to summarize different things. And the conclusion, don't write a conclusion. I'd sooner write the positives, negatives, and surprises. So just want to show you, that's an example. And by the way, this project, I think, got the highest mark for last year. Okay, and just an example of one that comes from group B, Library and Internet Research. I thought this was good. IoT. Actually, it's based on my interviews, that one. Fieldwork report, factory comparison. Oh, compliance, this one here. Yeah, this one's really well done. And what's important is, let's have a look. I set them up to this group. They did a Zoom interview with one of the managers of product IP, and it was all about compliance. And if you are importing into Europe, you have to be very, very clear on what the product requirement, compliance requirements are. Even if from China or Vietnam, India, Bangladesh, it doesn't matter. You still have to be aware. It affects you. This is not just out of China. And then there's various risks at manufacturing level, regulation, and post retailing. And so they actually gave some background, and then based on their interview, they talked about the various risks associated with different types of products that were imported into Europe. And this is a very, very big deal these days. And I know a lot of exporters that buy products from China and ship around the world. They're afraid to send into EU because the requirements for EU are so strict, very, very, very strict, and so much documentation and everything. And so then they talked about all the different requirements, or the main ones, Roach, CE, and then in the end, the challenges and conclusion, positive, negative, surprises. In the end, they went for 19 pages, and you're thinking, well, hang on, you just said 10 pages. Well, do you get more marks if you write more? Not necessarily. I'm focusing more on the quality. The big thing that this group did was they spent an afternoon, and the Zoom call went for over 2 hours, in talking to one of the managers for Product IP. And Product IP is a startup in Netherlands that helps you to manage your compliance issues. You tell them what product you want to import into Europe. They tell you what documentation you need. They tell you what factory quality controls are needed. They tell you what product testing is needed. And that's their job. So this group interviewed them and then wrote up this this report. So, okay, just want to give you an idea of when we, and then some of you are probably thinking, well, how do you compare an A versus a B? I really look at the proof of work. I look at the work that you have done, the evidence, and it's not necessarily in the words. The fieldwork project did very, very well because they made it very concise. The library and internet went very, very well because all of the group members came into Monash in the meeting room and actually did the Zoom call together. I actually joined the Zoom call at the start to introduce them to the manager, and then I left them at it for the next 2 hours. So, you know, that proof of work, that's very, very important when you're thinking about how can you master your project? How can you do it successfully? Okay, so I've got a question for you. I made a video in my YouTube to show you how that I take you through the project. Did any of you see that video? Let me show you just a minute. Okay. By the way, can you see this screen? Has the screen changed or not?
Yes.
Yes, it has. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So if you know, you go down to MGM 5698, and if you click on that, okay, so you've watched the first video, then there's Corona-19 effects. That was the interview I did, but this was the more lengthy version of that. Here, I've got how to write a report. So in this video, and it's less than 10 minutes, I actually take you through what you should do on page 1, what you should do on page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So I'm not telling you have to write 3,000 words or 4,000 words. I'm looking for 10, 11 pages. Maximum is okay. It's about the quality of the report, not the length of the report. That's important. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you haven't watched that video, I think that's essential watching in the next 72 hours. Do you think you can do that? Because when you watch it, then you can ask questions, right? You say, oh, O'Connor, at the 5-minute mark, you said A, B, and C. Can you explain? Okay, so that's the type of questions you might come back with next week. Okay, so what have I done in the last 5 minutes? Number one, I've given you an example of 2 projects that were very successful last year. One of them was a field work, and it depended on one of the group members having access to their company. Ah, okay. The other one was more a Zoom interview combined with library research. And so that was more of a hybrid, and it depended much more on their extensive library research that they had to do. Okay, so think about that as a group. I don't expect all of you to have access to field work opportunities, but I do value, I think I made it very, very clear that I do have a preference for the type A rather than the type B and C, but all three types are manageable as to get a good grade to score well. Okay. Are there any questions? You can write them in the chat room if you like.
For the field work, is there a specific industry that we have to focus on?
No, not at all. What is important is no, there's no particular industry. You could be textiles, kitchenware, footwear.
Okay.
It could be B2B industrial, robots, electronics. It can be anything.
All
Okay.
right, okay.
If we have.
I have a question. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. No, that's. Is it okay if I proceed?
Yes.
Or.
Please.
Okay. So I was just wondering. So for the group work, do we have to pick out an MNC to talk about their global supply chain management, or can we do our report based on a local company that is involved in like getting its parts down from like another nation? Is that possible as well?
Yes, that's possible. Yes, you don't have to work with an MMC. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, remember, supply chains are not just between two countries. A supply chain can be just in Malaysia, right? You know, you're sourcing palm oil, then you produce a palm oil product, and then you distribute it to the supermarket, and then it's sold, right? So, you know, technically it's not global supply chain, but it's still supply chain. So that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no,
So
good
Daniel,
question.
I just wanted to check. So if let's say if we opt for like the library or internet research, then which means we can only focus in number 3, 4, and 5. Is that right? The topic.
Oh, you can do more than that. You come up, if you think there's something pressing or something more critical, like I have limited knowledge. You may know something in your area that I don't know. So you can bring that to the table and say, we want to do it on this. As long as it has a supply chain element, then I don't think there's any problem with that. Remember, the supply chain element means between two companies, and you know, the linkage between, you know, from raw materials to retail. So, you know, maybe one aspect of that chain.
All right. Okay, thanks.
That's a good question. If you don't have to do COVID, you don't have to do PPE. My advice for, you know, and maybe you have contact with, or like another idea, maybe looking at a startup that has a startup on Kickstarter in Malaysia that has raised funds to deliver a product under the crowdfunding campaign. Do you know you know Kickstarter, right? Yes. Okay. All right. So, and then you may go and interview that startup and find out, you know, what are their challenges, what are their problems in actually making that product and actually shipping it to the customers of their crowdfunding campaign. You know, and so you may know someone in your network that has done that. Like, it doesn't take a company to do that. One individual can do that. You could set up, you know, I got this special pen, right? And maybe I raise 30,000 ringgit because people want to buy this special pen. Well, now I've got to go and make it and deliver it on time. Okay. You don't need a company to do that. So your project doesn't have to be about a company. It could be an individual that has raised money on Kickstarter in Malaysia. So you can be very creative in what you do. I can tell you, I've interviewed over 50. Oh, yes, sir. Question?
Oh, yes, sir. Hi. So I was wondering if can we talk about Amazon's fulfillment center program?
Yes, you can.
Because because I'm from India, sir, and in India, in South, I stay in the south part of the country. There are only 2 fulfillment centers. So maybe we can talk about how during this COVID time it has been difficult for them to supply essentials.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes. Yep. Fulfillment by Amazon. Big business.
Yes, sir.
I encourage you.
It is indeed.
Absolutely. Encourage
Great.
it.
Thank you so much, sir.
That's exciting. I'll learn something from it too. Please don't do something that I know about. Teach me.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
Sure, sir. Maybe if I get something, I can discuss it with you, sir. Maybe if I have any other queries.
Absolutely. Now, you're from India, correct?
Yes, sir, I'm from India.
And Nikau, is it?
Nikhil Lamba, that's right.
Nicola. Okay. Good. I have some news. I've got a friend who's Indian who will be on our Zoom call next week to talk about
Great.
sourcing from India. Because some of you asked, oh, is this course just about China? Well, I've got to respond because you are the customer. So I've got India. And the week after that, I got someone from Vietnam to talk about the challenges in Vietnam. Now, these guests, I'll bring them in. We'll make it very, very short, sharp and sweet, 45 minutes. So we don't take up too much time, but at least get some flavor for, the detail on the ground in these other countries. So I think we can do that.
Great. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, happy to help. Someone asked about the group size. I'm thinking if we have 40, how many do we have at the moment? We have 35 participants. I would say if we had a group of size of 5 maximum, I reckon then we can have 7 groups if there's 35 around. If it goes up to 40, then we'll have 8 groups of 40, 8 groups of 5. Okay, so what do you think of that? Let me make a note of that, for 5. If we're between 35 and 40 packs. Okay. What do you think of that? If anyone wants to be in a group of 4, let me know. But prefer not to have a group of 6. I think it gets a bit complicated with 6 in a group. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, so it's 4 to 5.
Yes, so I'm leaning for 5, but if you've got 4, then you've got to be very definite about what you want to do in a group of 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we've got 40, we probably want to, we don't want to have more than 8 groups. 8 5s are 40. We've got 35. It's possible to have a group of 4. Keep it 8, 7 or 8. It's okay. Okay, let me just stop there for a minute. Just what you'll start to notice is in the playlist, I've set up the playlist so you watch next video that is in order. So for this week, you would have watched the first 16 minutes of Made in China 2025. And then blockchain in the supply chain is 18 minutes. Of course, I'm not going to assess you on that. That's a little bit more of a background of what the blockchain is about. Excuse me. Then the 19 minutes for the benefits and pain points and 9 minutes for case examples. Okay, what you'll notice is there's another video here, Virtual Tools and Applied AI. You don't need to watch that now, but I watched it during the week. It is an amazing video. I would probably save this for middle of the semester. So I might move that down the playlist. If you see it missing, it will be further down the playlist. Okay, so don't feel that you have to watch that straight away. And then for this week, we had applying blockchain in supply chain management. This is a very nice summary given by a guy that works in IBM. If any of you are doing work on blockchain as your group project, then I would encourage you to watch this video. It's very, very important. Okay, excuse me. Let's get back into it. All right. Okay, so there's some of the ideas I've got here for the group work. What I want to do now is, let me just pause for a moment. Are there any questions about, any more questions about the scope of what you can do your project on? What we'll do before the end of tonight is we'll get some, if you have formed groups, then we'll get you, we'll collect your names in the various groups for tonight. Okay, if you've done that. So we want to get started early, so then we get you start thinking about what project that you want to do. Okay, now what I want to do now is spend 5-10 minutes, 15 minutes, just doing a review of last week, plus look at some of the questions that you asked last week. So just as a review of last week, notice that last week, do you know which numbers did we pick most out of here? Do you remember? Which one was it? I think some of you picked out 10. What was the other popular numbers that you picked out?
There was 3 or 4 and 7 and 8.
Yeah, I think it was 6. 6 was definitely one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So last week, what you were finding was that yes, you can have a list of 10 things, but actually, if you're actually working at a company, you can never do all those 10 things. You've got to focus. You can't do everything. Anyway, so I was reflecting on this list. I was reflecting on what I taught you last week, and I thought, is there some way I can put everything onto a mind map? And just to show you that this semester we'll be covering some of these areas, and this is what it looks like. And then I'll share this in the Moodle with you. But just want to show you that in this map, so far, you know, these are factors impacting global supply chains. In some ways, this is kind of these are operational issues over here. Certification, compliance, regulations, very operational. Reputation, this is very big in the fashion industry, MMC brands, predictions and forecasting. Remember, we talked about that last week. One thing we didn't talk about last week was digitization, okay? And that's why we're talking a little bit about that this week. One thing we didn't talk about last week, like supply chain resilience, was one of the, you know, it's one of these things. number 3, supply chain resilience is very, very important. And where else? Consolidation, that's part of that too. Understanding your second, third tier suppliers. Okay, these are all supply chain resilience. So then you're probably thinking, okay, so what does that mean? Well, it's how you manage the supplier. Some of you mentioned in the questions last week, sustainability, robotics is in there, and visibility. Okay. So we're going to cover some of these things are going to pop up as we go through the semester. And then, so I just want to show you that operationally, tonight, I'll briefly have a look at robotics. We're briefly having a look at blockchain. I think someone last week asked about big data. And in the weeks to come, there's going to be a little bit more spent on these areas here. Okay, later, mid-semester, later in the semester. Okay, so I just want you to know that we are, in some ways, we've got this list and we're looking at factors, but then when we come to examine those factors, we're going to look at it operationally. We're going to look at, well, what operationally can a company do? Wow. Okay. Now, where are we on this? Remember, we're in some ways, we've looked at the trade war, China 2025. We're going to look at that tonight very briefly. And of course, we've got COVID has come into it now. I haven't even written it in here. It's come so quickly, COVID-19. But the China Belt and Road, briefly covering that tonight. And, consumer markets. And then next week, that's when we get on to supplier challenges. But before we do that, we're still in some ways taking a big picture view. And then next week onwards, we go into a little bit more detail operationally about, okay, so given the situation, how do we manage A, B, and C? So that's where we're going. I just want to let you know where we are. So we're very, very clear. Okay, so given this diagram, I want to show you the feedback you gave me last week. Let's have a look. Okay. Remember, this is very anonymous, so like your names are not here, so that's fine. But I do read your question. So someone asked, due to urbanization, wouldn't it reduce the amount of cheap labor, or is it part of productivity reducing? Urbanization does reduce the amount of cheap labor because it creates opportunities for the population to move into more service roles. And when the population moves more into service roles, there is less labor for factory manufacturing roles. The United Nations predicted by 2025, there'll be 40 million less people between the ages of 15 and 30 in China for factory management roles. And, of course, China's getting old. Vietnam is younger. Cambodia, Bangladesh, India, they have a much younger labor force than China. So, this is always going to be pushing where factories are located. But the big thing I want you to take away from last week was you don't just locate a factory in one country for labor alone. There's always many factors you need to consider. Okay. If China and US decided not to end the trade war, what will happen next? What will happen next is that it will just become the new normal. What will happen is the inflation in the US and food prices, product prices in the US will just go up by 10, 15, 20% over the next 3 years. They'll go up very, very fast. In the short term, it's very hard for importers to pass on the costs of trade war to their customers because they're afraid to lose their customers, and they're caught in between. If you're an SME or a small person, then you have to wear the cost yourself. It's a bit hard to go back to the supplier and ask the supplier to suck up the whole cost of the tariff. MMCs, they can do that. They can get away with that, but not SMEs or the Amazon power sellers. Next question. How long does it typically take for a firm to achieve sustainability in supply chain management? It is always ongoing, because sustainability is affected by many things. If you look at my PowerPoint slide again, you'll notice sustainability depends on materials management. And each year, you've got to make sure that you're able to get good quality materials. Because if you get poor quality materials, when that goes into the process, then that can result in rejects, and then that affects your sustainability. Sustainability depends on consolidation. If you want to cut your suppliers down from 100 down to 50, it might take 1 or 2 years to do that, because you've got to do that in between orders. You cannot just do that midway between an order. So and also there's other things like COVID has delayed the ability of multinationals to send design teams into countries around the world, into Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, India, China. Multinationals cannot send their design teams to the suppliers. Wow. So sustainability in some ways is being delayed by 6-12 months just because of COVID. But generally, that answer that question, it does take time. Okay, will sourcing of pharmaceuticals and food post-COVID be different to require? Absolutely, it will be different. What will happen is that some of the developed countries around the world will spend more time in near sourcing pharmaceuticals and food. Maybe some countries will put restrictions on the foreign ownership of food production. That hasn't happened in Australia recently. That may happen next year. And some of these decisions become very political because pharmaceutical, PPE, and food are very sensitive items. And so post-COVID, you're going to expect that a lot of developed nations are going to encourage greater reshoring of those products. And in some ways that answers the next question. How differently will supply chain management work in the near future? Well, at the moment, it's not working very well. It has to be managed from a distance. I would say the big thing here, and this is something I learned during the week, is there'll be a greater role for digitalization. I'll give an example, and this is a company I'm trying to contact to get more information on, is Pivot 88. They provide digitalized supply chain quality management services. And so therefore they train factory workers in your factory of your supplier in any country to input data of the process, materials, quality gates, different parts into a tablet every day. And so therefore, when you are the multinational, you're overseas, you cannot send someone to the factory. You can get a digitalized update of what is happening in that supplier's factory. So you're going to, I think the biggest difference when it comes to supply chain management is going to be the increasing digitalization of the supply chain, because we cannot send people to the suppliers. Does the course only cover supply chain in specific industry or sectors? And what are they? Covers many sectors, industries. Okay, I have a lot of examples from the electronics industry, but increasingly, when I talk to Megla about India next week, she helps source products in houseware, sportswear, kitchenware, not just electronics, from India. And if we bring on Simon from Vietnam the week after, he's sourcing textiles only. Okay, so we can cover many different types. We don't just have to rely on one specific industry. But if you ask me, what about my videos that I have and you have access to, most of them are electronics type suppliers. Okay, as you have mentioned, COVID is different than SARS back in 2003. Would you be able to elaborate more? I think the big difference is COVID is not as... COVID in some ways was not as virulent as SARS. SARS was more virulent. That is, if you caught SARS, your chances of recovery were not as high as compared to COVID-19. And that's the big difference. And so what that meant was that once they could stop the transmission of SARS, it didn't transmit as easy as COVID-19, but when it did transmit, it was more deadly. And so that's why COVID is more concerning for the world, because in some ways it's very hard to stamp it out because it's very easy to spread compared to SARS. SARS is much more difficult to spread. Anyway, that's my limited knowledge, and that was the big difference. I actually got married in the middle of SARS, and the minister that married us had a face mask on at the start of the wedding, so it was very memorable at the time. Okay, we have a look at the question about product, because we know a company needs to produce more than usual. Example, the production of masks. Okay, maybe you need to elaborate on that. Would anyone like to elaborate on that? We can come back to that. That's right. Okay, so we're near the end. I've just pulled out a few parts. How to precisely predict trends post-COVID. Okay, number one. Here's how you predict. Number one, what is the biggest disruption you are facing now? I want you to think about that. What is it? Come on, you all know. What's the disruption? Sarah.
What? The disruption? COVID?
What's the biggest disruption you are facing now?
Availability of goods.
Really? Like we can get goods. The goods are able to be shipped.
Is
right?
it disruption of movement?
Yes, disruption of movement. Humans cannot move from country to country. So then what you do, you predict and so then that's created a lot of supply chain quality checking problems. It's created a lot of, in other words, we've lost visibility of the supply chain, right? And so post-COVID, what's going to happen is companies are going to think, I don't want this to ever happen again. I need to have a backup in case air travel is cut off again in 2 or 3 years' time. What is our backup? Companies are going to figure out they're going to have a backup. No one had a backup at the start of this year. No one had a backup for not being able to travel from country to country. Would you agree with that? So you can be very, very sure. The easiest prediction is, we've got to have a backup for this. And how do we do that? Number one, maybe we have a permanent person from our company that actually works in a country where we have suppliers. we have more permanent people. Okay. Or number two, we expand the need to have more digitalization of the supply chain. We were going to digitalize over the next 5 years, but now post COVID-19, now that's going to be number one priority. Okay, next 18 months, we need to roll it out. And so what you're going to find is that there are always plans to digitalization. There's always plans for consolidation. There was always plans to do A, B, C, or D. Post-COVID, what's going to happen is, okay, if there's a timeline for 3 years for this plan, I want this executed in 12 months. They'll want to get things done very, very quickly before the next COVID or similar disruption occurs. So I think that's the best way to predict. Think about your own movement. Okay. How companies will move from China and keep their benefits, because moving from China increasing the cost affect the market share. Yeah, but that's the cost of doing business. Prices go up everywhere around the world over time. That's a fact, except for oil price. They can go up and down. But generally, prices go up in generally. Okay. Labor rates always go up. Okay. I remember in 1994, I went to a footwear factory in Korea, in South Korea. Okay. So what was that, 26 years ago? They were making sneakers. They actually gave me a sneaker. And when you walk in that sneaker, the lights in the heel go on. Okay, that's what they were making. Okay, that shoe wear factory in South Korea was gone, I think 3 or 4 years later. Why? Because labor costs just go up. That's what happens. And so where do you go? Go to China. Labor costs go up. We'll move out of China. Let's go to Vietnam. Labor costs are going up there. Well, let's move to Myanmar. Labor costs are going up there. Let's go to Bangladesh. That has been the story of footwear and textile industry. And driven a lot by labor. Electronics less so, because they depend more on the ecosystem. Okay, let's just have a look. How manufacturing China can move and keep the profit at the same time. Keep the profit. Well, you go when they move. Sometimes it takes 1 or 2 years to establish and regain the same efficiency of production. But remember what I told you last week is it's very, very important to understand what is the skill base of the labor in the country you are moving to. Because VF Corp, they have low skilled labor in Mexico, but they use the high skilled labor in China. Right. So it's you cannot just measure the success of a move based on profit. You need to, it's multiple years, and it's endlessly running continuous improvement programs to try and, I don't know, drive down the costs, but actually to improve the efficiency. So you drive down the rejects, you drive down the poor quality output, and that's how you can improve the profit over time. But that is ongoing no matter which country you're in. China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, India. It's continuous improvement all the time. If the global supply chain does not change much from this year onwards until the next decade, and if our focus will continue being to produce PPE for manufacturers, how will management of waste be like? That's a very, very good question. Like PPE, we're throwing away masks. No one's thinking about that now. But you can be sure 1 or 2 or 3 months' time, people are starting to think about that. Because if there's 2-3 billion people around the world using one mask every day, that's 2 or 3 billion masks a day, right? Going into garbage. And is it biodegradable? Maybe not. because you have the melt blown material that goes in the middle of the mask, and that's a chemical material. That's made out of petrochemicals. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So the waste that's a big factor. Okay. So there's a big question, and there's a few things. We'll cover that another time. But right now, I just want to acknowledge the fact that, number one, I really appreciate that you're actually asking these questions, because if you don't ask these questions, we cannot go through and learn more. And you can, my PowerPoints, some of them are dull and boring. You don't want to just watch PowerPoints all the time. So answering your questions, we can get to the point of what's on your mind, and maybe you can teach me something during the process. This mind map, I'll keep on dressing it up as we go through the unit, but I'll share a copy of that in Moodle. Okay, summarizing what I've just done now. So basically we've gone over the group fieldwork report project, and I've looked at a review of a bit of last week, but specifically answering some of your questions to give you a greater sense of what the situation is. And remember, just want to remind you where I'm coming from. If you ask me, I'm very operational. In other words, I'm the perfect person to have in your factory if you want to improve the operations of the factory, if you want to improve the sustainability of the factory and how it can be, the sustainability can be improved. Because sustainability is all about improving the operations. Sustainability is all about improving the efficient use of the resources. So what are the resources in a factory? Number one, the materials you buy. Number two, the labor you hire. Number three, it's the utilities, it's the overhead, it's the water, it's the electricity. It's all of these are all resources, and sustainability is about minimizing these resources in making the product that you need to make. And I did talk to one guy that worked on the supply chain of textiles. I said, what do you think the biggest thing that factories don't measure, or one thing that you think they should measure that they don't measure in your experience? And he said to me, Neil, that's an easy one. They don't measure their electricity and water use. And if they start measuring that, they will find ways of limiting its use, and in that same way they'll become much more sustainability in their operations. Oh, okay, all right, didn't think of that one before. There you go. Measurement. That's what I teach in management accounting. It's all about measuring things. Very operational. So what we're going to do now, it's 10 minutes to the top of the hour. We're going to have a 10-minute break, and when we come back, we'll get into the second of three parts, where we'll look at quickly review the China 2025 and the innovation framework. And in the final hour, we'll look at blockchain and think what you can start to think about in the supply chain and digitalization. Okay, sound like a good plan? Are we good on that? Do we have thumbs up or down?
Yep.
Let me just stop sharing for a moment so then I can see all your faces. Wow, they're all here. Thank you. Okay, have a 10-minute break. I'll see you back in 4 minutes past 8. How's that? Sound like a plan? Okay. I'll put it in the chat room there, 8:04. Hello, Agya. Are you there?
I was just like, I'm just taking out the group.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. No, it's just a friendly hello. That's all.
Okay.
That's good. actually put glasses on, look better. Hi, welcome back everyone. Thank you. Hope you had a good break and then we're back into it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is if most of you have watched the Made in China 2020-25 video. So that was just the first 16 minutes, correct? First 16 is the most important part. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is introduce very, very briefly the innovation framework, and then we're going to have a group breakout session. Okay, so I'm just going to share the screen with you. Okay, ready to go. All right, so have you all watched the video on the innovation framework? Yes? Do we have a thumbs up if you've done that? Can I have some feedback? Okay, good, good, good. All right, many of you, I hope. Okay, if you haven't, please do so. But remember, this innovation framework is actually describes a lot of how multinationals, governments, SMEs, startups approach the future. Let me repeat. This innovation framework helps you to explain a lot of how multinationals, startups, governments, SMEs approach the future. What do we mean by future? Well, it's about creating the future. Innovation is about creating new things. It's about change. And what I did say in the video that often startups start with a customer focus-based innovation, whereas multinationals are much more efficiency-based innovation. And in emerging economies, there's a great emphasis on government plans and infrastructure engineering-based innovation. And essentially multinationals that have a lot of firepower in terms of money, resources. They spend a lot on research and development. So there are different approaches to innovation. And so what was the example that I gave in the video about a customer-focused innovation? Do you remember?
Xiaomi.
Xiaomi, very good. And so what did they care about? What was their focus?
They went directly to the customer rather than innovation like technology.
Correct. And did they care about profits?
You said that they were facing problems now.
Okay.
So,
but initially, their focus was what? What was their number one goal when they were a startup?
Increasing market share.
Exactly. Just get more customers. And I think their margin, they're talking less than 4% profit margin. Like you go out of business that's not sustainable, 4% profit margin. But they didn't care about that. What they cared about was getting market share, and then because they were supported by venture capital. And in some ways, that's a startup focused approach is let's just get market share, forget about profit, because we get funding from venture capital, and we will worry about profits later once we established in the market and become the first mover in the market. And that's been a tried and trusted way of startups. And so that we call that a customer focused innovation. In other words, all they're doing is they're bringing to the customer a solution. That solution could be IoT, Internet of Things, or it could be a software solution, or it could be a hardware solution, or it could be a service-based solution. In the area of fintech is in IoT solution, customer service solution or software solution. And that's all they care about. And it's all about getting enough customers to sign up, and then they get more money from venture capital, and one day they do IPO, and then they can start to think about how they can make money. But that's not the initial game. So that's what we call customer focus, whereas efficiency based is more, okay, you're already making a profit. You're a multinational, and you're always thinking about, well, how can we improve our collaboration? How can we actually improve continuous improvement? How can we make the supply chain more sustainable? And you're continuously driving down the costs of maybe materials. You're continuously improving the process so you don't have any rejects. You're continuously improving the logistics so you can actually ship more for the same price. You're continuously working out, should we ship by air or ship by sea? You're doing all these things all the time just to improve efficiencies. And then you've got the two in the middle. So what I want you to do now is break up into your groups. We're going to have a breakout now. And I've given you some examples, but I want you to go, here are the three questions I want you to consider. Okay. And again, we're going to do this very, very fast. How long do you want? 4 minutes or 5 minutes? We go very, very fast here. You don't need that long. All right, we're going to have a breakout room. I want you to break out, discuss in your groups. So you've got answers to 1, 2, and 3 of these questions. Okay, 4 minutes. You have 4 minutes. Okay, so let's get this working. And then we can do more breakouts. We can do it faster then. Breakout rooms. I'll give you 5, okay? 60 more seconds. Okay, we've got 34 participants. I reckon we have 8 breakout rooms. What do you think? 8. At 4 to 5 participants per room. Okay, 4, 5 manually, 8, 9. Okay, see you in 5 minutes. Hi, Jenny.
Oh, hi, Professor. Hi.
How? Okay. Muchin, are you okay? Okay, you're there. Oh, Jenny.
Yes.
Oh, how's your week been?
Sorry?
Did you have a good week?
Break? Not really. It was a
Oh,
busy week, yes.
sorry about that. Okay. I hope today was okay for you. All right. Thanks for joining tonight. Oh, Jenny, how did the first session go?
Oh yeah, so sorry, Professor, about the late. I came late 5 minutes. Yeah. Oh, active. I'm not sure. I think, Professor, you look quite down. You know, you're not
Oh, remind me again. Sorry. Say that again. I didn't hear you.
really energetic like the last week session.
Oh, okay. I'll have some.
You okay, compared to previous session, last week's session.
Yes. Okay.
What I was saying is, you look very down. It's like you compared to last week's session, you look more energetic. So it make the students more active and ask more questions.
Okay. So this
Direction.
week, not as much energy as last week. That's what you're saying?
Yes, yeah, that was I was saying. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll have to. Thank you. Then you should interrupt and tell me. Neil, wake up. What are we doing here? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking too much. I'm thinking ahead of myself too much on this, Ginny, because I think the challenge, I'm just trying to figure out where the students are because it's early stages, and maybe I'll give them a little bit more time to share a little bit and ask more questions, I think.
Yeah, I think it's better like that. Yeah.
All right, let me try this in this break. I think they got 1 more minute and then we'll cut them off. And Yeah, I think Ginny, you're right. I was thinking too much about. I was a bit worried about where the students were at with regard to their number one, their group work, the assessment. And I'm just thinking that we're sort of throwing a lot at them very, very fast, and I'm not sure how they were receiving it. So I think I was worried a bit too much. So I just go wake up a little bit. Okay. Thank you for that feedback.
Okay.
Ginny, you need to tell me this. Okay, close all
Yeah,
rooms.
I'll tell in advance.
Yeah, tell me. Just, yeah. Otherwise, the students will, yeah, it's good to know right now. It's good. Oh, they got 1 minute. Yeah, let's get the students a bit more chance to participate. But it's good though. I've got a guest lecturer next week in, Megla, to talk about India. So I think that's great for the students.
Oh, nice.
Did you have a quick look at any of the videos that I posted, Ginny? I know you were very busy.
Sorry, Professor. I got exam tomorrow, so yeah, I don't have time to look at video.
Oh, that's all right. Understand. No problem.
Just
Okay.
so fast, right?
Okay, we're back in. Are we all back from our breakout rooms?
It's too quick.
It's
It's
too
too
quick.
quick, Professor.
Oh, but then you've got to be fast, you know, get to the point, you know, just. Okay, all right. If you want an extra minute, we'll give extra minute next time. Okay. But some of them are still in them, are they?
Belt Road, China.
Okay.
So we get forced out.
Yes, I forced you out, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the purpose was, haven't you heard of speed meetings? Don't you know that that's what they do in companies? Because if you have a speed meeting, you only have 5 minutes to discuss things. You get to the point very, 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 very quick. And yeah, okay, but that's all right. Okay, time is short. Okay, I'm excited. Let's quickly. Let's see how fast you can go now. Let's wait a minute. Let me just get that. All right, we've already discussed some examples. Can you give another example of the 4 areas of innovation? Can someone? Hello? Have we got anyone here? Am I on my own?
No.
Can we give me an example of Xiaomi? Can someone give me an example of another area? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if you want an exact example like Xiaomi, there's OnePlus.
OnePlus? Yeah, tell.
Yeah, OnePlus smartphones. They're by far, they're basically what the quality. I mean, sorry, the specs they have compared to even Xiaomi, they're actually really, really good. But the prices they give out is really cheap. So recently they even released a quad camera with I think a latest Snapdragon and stuff like that for almost 1,500 ringgits.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
So-
also again niche market, I guess.
And very low margin, and they're just growing their market, aren't they?
Pretty much. So their biggest market actually. So the phone just actually released last week.
Right.
And in Asia, their biggest two markets are Malaysia and India.
Wow. Yeah, Xiaomi had trouble in India because they used licenses from Ericsson and some of the other multinationals, and India said, well, hang on, you can't sell in India because you are actually copying the licenses and you haven't got certain parts or components in your phone. They need to be licensed and you've used them without paying the license fee. So they actually, at one stage, India stopped Xiaomi from selling in India for that reason. But, you know, but
So the
Xiaomi
reason
didn't,
OnePlus is big in India as well is
yes,
they also have the OnePlus manufacturers in India as well.
right.
So they're trying to also follow India's Make in India movement as well. So
Yeah, so I think the big thing about India is that they are very vigilant when it comes to the sale of products that are violating IP or license restrictions. So they catch up with them and stop them. So yeah, Xiaomi could sell in China, but they couldn't successfully sell in India in the early stage. But yeah, but to them, they didn't care about that. They just wanted market share, and I guess that was the game that they were playing. Can someone give an example from another part of the innovation framework? That's very good. That someone else?
Tesla.
Yeah, yeah. So where would Tesla fit?
R&D and R&D and technology.
Definitely an R&D.
So basically,
yep.
Yeah. So you see BMW and Mercedes and all these big, and Toyota, they're not really moving towards the like self-driving cars and also the cars that work on electricity because they're very scared. Or also there's the oil market that plays a huge big deal because, you know, the politics in this case. So, but we do have Tesla moving towards that new reign of cars.
Absolutely. And now they've set a factory up in China, which is amazing. Going gangbusters in China at the moment. So they are, they're actually created a new model, a new business model when it comes to car manufacturing. And actually using a startup like a crowdfunding type approach to finding out if there's an interest in a new model, then you can sign up for it, pay your $250 deposit for when that model will be available in 2 or 3 years' time. It's crazy. They're just taking a new approach to, so they've got R&D plus very innovative when it comes to capturing the consumer market, and that like many of you are doing digital marketing or in marketing in MIB, correct? So you'll be discussing more of that side in that unit. But you know, supply chain and marketing, they're very connected, very, very connected. You need very good R&D to sustain very good marketing ideas. So that's what Tesla is able to do. It's wonderful. Can you give me an example of a company that really focuses on improving efficiencies, continuous improvement of efficiencies?
I have one on that.
Yes.
What about Alibaba?
Samsung.
Okay, so there's Alibaba and Samsung. Okay, so let's do Alibaba first. Can you give an example on that, Joey?
Yeah. So from what I read, they use AI, a kind of AI system that allows them to like smoothen their supply chain management. So what happens is that the platform allows them to determine how far, like which kind of road is the fastest in terms of delivery.
Wow.
Which is the cheapest, what kind of boxes are better for like the certain product, you know, what kind of sizes are more efficient in that sense. Cost effective, I guess. Yeah.
Wow. No, that's very, very interesting. I didn't know that. So that's definitely, that's more on the logistics services, correct?
Yeah, but I think this was in like 2018. But I think they also had one that's like slightly related, which is I think a lot of companies have it now as well. It's more about how when the customer makes the order, I think it's sort of blockchain lah. But when the customer makes the order, it triggers the reaction whereby the logistics immediately, packages the stuff and then delivers it out. So yeah.
Okay, all right. That's partly, yeah, fulfillment by Amazon does that kind of approach, and
Yeah.
and then at the industrial level, they talk about vendor managed inventory, where they stop the supplier from sending all the raw materials to the factory until the factory needs it. And so they ask the suppliers to hang on to inventory and send it to the factory at the last minute. So the factory can sort of do just in time, and then they force the supplier to store and look after the cost of managing the inventory. Interesting. Someone mentioned Samsung there. Hello.
Yes, so that was me.
Yes, definitely.
So they're trying to get in this. They're trying to get in these cheap, efficient, and long-lasting durability mobile phones. Say around 1,000 ringgits, 1,500 ringgits phones for the lower and upper middle class market to serve them long. And I think here in India and Malaysia, you'll find a lot of users having Samsung.
Interesting. Yes, I've noticed that it's one step down from the Galaxy Note that I've got here, the A10 model. So it's okay. In some ways, that's a marketing approach, or you can talk it's a disruptive innovation approach. That is, okay, let's not just make the high end product. We still need to we should be making these low end products so the competition don't come in and establish a market beneath our major flagship products. In some ways, that's more of a marketing rather than a supply chain strategy. But anyway, in some ways, we're blurring the lines when we start talking about innovation. Marketing depends on how you manage the supply chain and the other way around. So I think that's an important takeaway. Let's just go number 3. What are the 2 big trends in global sourcing around the innovation framework? What do you think? What do you think they are? There's no right or wrong answer. What do you think? Have you got an example of one? Someone else? Hello, everyone falling asleep because I'm falling asleep. We should all stand up and wake up, right?
Profit margin, perhaps.
Margin.
Everyone is
Sustainability, maybe.
Oh, that's a big one. Yes, definitely sustainability. Sustainability is an approach. Sustainability is it's all about long-run cost management. That's another word for sustainability. Okay, not short-run cost management. Short-run cost management, let's just cut. But long-run cost management is about design. It is about using R&D to design in functionality at a reasonable price. It's about using R&D to design in proper elements of the product that, okay, customer may not value, so therefore you put cheaper elements of that part into the product. Okay, so you combine it, that's more, we teach this in management accounting, and that is, it all gets down to how a product is made up of many different parts, okay? But a customer may only value or see 1 or 2 parts. So you don't see all the parts inside this phone. So why do we need to polish the inside of the phone that Steve Jobs always did with the iPhone? You don't need to do that. And with Samsung, they probably don't polish the inside. And little things like that is focusing on designing in functionality. And that is, you spend more of your time in making sure that you do very, very well those areas of the product that the customer sees as being functional. And you focus on cutting costs in the areas that the customer does not see as being functional. Wow. Can they do that? They do that all the time. They came out of the motor vehicle industry. So I think that's a continuing trend in global sourcing. I would wait a minute, let me just go back to the framework. Okay. I would think in the emerging markets or developing economies, I think the big thing I want you to think about is that the governments tend to play a greater role in infrastructure development. This is not just China, you know, India, Cambodia, Bangladesh, Myanmar, you know, all Southeast Asia. The governments are more likely to play a role in infrastructure development and things to kickstart various innovations in that country. Whether they partner with China in the process of doing that, it doesn't matter. But that's a big thing. When the supply chain is coming out of a developing nation, then you need to think of, you need to be aware of, depending on which industry you're in, you need to be aware of which area is the government targeting, because you don't want to be you don't want to be blacklisted. You don't want to be sourcing textiles in some parts of China where they have blacklisted textile mills, where they are shutting down factories that are violating the pollution of waterways and things like that. So you need to be you need to think about where is your supply chain in that country, and is there different government initiatives in place that may force you to focus on a particular area in that country? And is there an initiative that you need to avoid? So for example, China has the Water 10 plan, and that is a plan to clean up the 7 major waterways in China over a 10-year period. So if you're in textiles, then you need to be aware of that government initiative. Otherwise, you could be on the wrong side of any enforcement actions they take, like they did in 2017, and they closed down a lot of factories. Interesting. Okay, one more. Let's move on to the next part. So just keep in mind, look, everything is about innovation. The supply chain you have today is not going to be the supply chain that's going to be profitable in 12 months, 5 years' time. Supply chains, you always have to be innovative. The question is, are you innovating starting with the consumer markets, working backwards, like Xiaomi did, like OnePlus is doing? Or are you innovating forward? That is, you're spending all your money in R&D to actually leapfrog ahead of all of your competition and just creating a market that never ever existed. And then you can charge a premium like Tesla is doing, okay? You always, supply chain, you always have to be innovating. That's the big thing you need to take away here. Okay, let's go Made in China 2025. We're going to quickly, very, very quickly on this because I did give you the video on this. So you need to be, watch the video, and I only spoke for 16 minutes. That's all you have to watch of that. So the big thing about this, the China 2025 and why I'm introducing it to you is that this is probably one of the reasons that got China into trouble with regard to the trade war, because China was very, very savvy in pressing the media about that it wants to lead the world in 10 industries, not just 5, in 10 industries by 2025. Wow, can they do that? Well, there was a lot of issues I talked about in the video, but here's some I just want to highlight for you. Okay, here are the 10 industries. And this is what you need to know. Here's the big question I'd ask the board of directors. Is your global supply chain in any one of these industries? Okay, energy saving, new energy vehicles like Tesla, power equipment, okay, ABB out from Europe, biological and high performance medical devices. Wow, like, you know, this is quite a very complex area, okay, very sensitive area. New materials. So rare earth materials is a particular material that China has the largest supply of in the world. And why is that important? Because rare earth materials have particular magnetic qualities that when you process them in a certain way, you can create very, very efficient magnets, which are used in just about any device, like phones have them. Any electrical device, IoT devices have these magnets. They use rare earth materials. What is interesting is that US, they can mine their own rare earth materials, but they have to send those materials to China to be produced, to be processed, to go to the next stage, to be useful in electronics. Next generation IT, very, very critical. Advanced rail transportation equipment. Malaysia's supposed to be working with China on their rail network with Singapore. Well, a bit delayed, but hopefully it happens one day. Advanced CNC machine tools and robots. So robotics is very, very big. Okay, so China has very strict plans to, lead the world in robots. Over 30–40% of the robots purchased by China for use in China's factories now are made in China. Okay, in the future, India will be buying more robots from China, and so will other countries. Agricultural machinery is a big thing, aerospace and marine engineering. The point about China 2025 is that, okay, if your supply chain is in China, you better be very careful if it's in one of these 10 areas. You need to be aware of what the government is doing in those 10 areas. How is that going to affect the ecosystem of your supply chain? And that's why this is relevant. Okay. All right. So this may affect the materials that you are sourcing. And maybe you're just sourcing materials from China to be assembled in Vietnam or India. Like China supplies a lot of fabric for processing in other countries. Okay. Textile mills is very big in China. Okay. So what does that mean? The example of new energy vehicles, I already told you about that. Tesla is, got a huge model in the world, but notice, look at BYD. BYD is now the largest electric vehicle manufacturer in the world. So why does that matter to you? Well, by 2025, the market for electric vehicles in China is going to be, we're talking about 5 million vehicles per year. Okay. 5 million, is it 5 million? Yeah, and in USA, it's only going to be 500,000, 1/10 the size. Okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean? It means the technology for that product and the ecosystem to support that product is going to be in China. So if you're sourcing electronics that come from any of those ecosystems, then your factory, your supply chain may have to stay in China for that reason. Not just because the market is going to be in China in the future. It's because the ecosystem is going to continue to flourish and be even stronger in 5 or 10 years' time. Okay. So last week I said, well, the electronic ecosystem is strong in China. That's why you need to keep the global supply chain in China. What I'm saying this week is, well, you still may need to keep the global supply chain in China because some ecosystems like electronics is going to be even stronger in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. It's not going to be stronger in 5 years' time in Vietnam as it's going to be in China, because you've got electronics is one part of this China 2025 plan. So the point I want you to take away is that the government policy is filtering down in to support an ecosystem, and then that ecosystem you need to pay attention to if your global supply chain is feeding off that ecosystem. That's what you need to know. Okay. All right, let's do another group breakout, at this time 5 minutes. And here are 2 questions for you to ponder. Okay. 5 minutes again, very, very quickly. Are you ready? Maybe I'll give you the answers, but I want you to, if you didn't understand what I'm talking about, I want you to be able to voice that out. Voicing it out in a small group, a chat room, helps you to voice it out into the big group here. So we'll do this again, and let's open all rooms, and you can go back in again. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Go. Ginny, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Ginny, was that a better energy then?
But I realized that after they came out from the breakout session, always the same person give the answer. I mean, answer the questions.
Okay, we'll call on some of the others. We'll call on some of that. Thank you for that. Sharon, are you okay?
I think others deserve.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Sharon, are you okay? Oh, Sharon's in there. Okay. Well, I guess this time they can go back into their own breakout groups, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. What I might do is, oh, Nafis, any question you have? You okay? What? They just spend 5 minutes?
Excuse me, sir?
Hello, are you able to join a breakout
Yeah, hi.
room?
Yeah, can you? Yes, sir. Can you help me out here, please?
You'd like to join one? Oh, let me assign. Oh, yeah, okay, I can see.
Sure.
There you go.
Yep.
Ginny, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I apologize. And
It's fine.
you probably got your exam on your mind, so I apologize for your challenge. I'll try and think a little bit more creatively about what we can do next week and week onwards, and how we use the breakout rooms. But might be possible that we have we create some debates or something like that between them, or something like that. So I'll think about that.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Yeah, try and make it a bit more fun, but I need to keep energy. Let me just stand up for a minute. trying to think how to share the video from last week with them because the video is so large. Maybe I'll put it into YouTube and share it with them in a non-public mode.
Professor, did you share any announcement in Moodle, like the one that you share in the one that you share in the Google Hangout? Did you share it in the Moodle as well?
Oh, about the videos? Yes, I did.
Yeah, any announcement? Okay. I realized that there are 2 new students came in today, I think.
Okay.
Like they weren't there for last week.
Oh.
So I just added them in the Google Hangout today.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you for that. What we're going to do in the last hour. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Ginny, continue.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. It's fine. You first, yeah.
In the last hour, I guess we'll have a break in a minute, but we'll go over the blockchain. I think it can be quite exciting, the blockchain. But I guess the theme, or what I want the students to take away is not necessarily to take away this notion of, not to think about it as a blockchain as a solution to everything, but to think about how we can increasingly digitalize parts of the supply chain. Whether we use blockchain or not doesn't matter, but more to think in that, just to think down that road. And that's what I want them to take away. Because the video that I put in the playlist, I don't know if you noticed it, they talk about this digitalization and what they're doing in the supply chain, and they're not talking about blockchain, and it's so interesting, really, really interesting. So I might ask them to look at that, and we might talk about that for a short time next week.
All right. Yeah. Sounds interesting though, the digitalization of the blockchain. Yeah, it's fine.
Sorry, digitalization of the supply chain, but blockchain is one example. So we've got to.
All right.
Yeah, yes. Okay, I'll just close the rooms so they can come back. They got 57 seconds. They can come back. Okay, breakout group work. Hi, Elaine, you're back. Alpha, Nada, Jessica. Nada, you asked me about India last week, correct? Okay, we're all back again. Just very quickly, can I have some thoughts on 1 and 2? Who would like to go first? What about from breakout room 1? Let's ask Haley. Is Haley there?
Yeah. Yeah, so we've had a bit of discussion just now. Regarding question 1, we were thinking the China 2025 plan actually we were having a bit of not dispute, but a bit of different opinions. I personally think that because global supply chain is relevant to innovation, and innovation, they sort of spike up employment rate, I would say, and it opens up like new job posts,
Okay.
or something like that along the line. So I guess it also boils down to the reason why China needs to make the China 2025. It's also to slow down or in the need of slowing the growth of migrant workers, I think, because a lot of migrant workers that are inflowing to China.
Mm-hmm.
I guess China, how should I put it in words? Like, they really need bilingual workers, but I think that's the major traits or major talent that they see in their employee. But in terms of other talents, like other traits like hardworking or like, other talents, I guess China has like ample talents. But in regards of bilingual, I think they need more. So, but in terms of innovation and global supply chain, in that context, I guess this is also to slow down the growth of foreign workers. That's like my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Foreign workers from where? Foreign workers from
Southeast Asia, I would say, because most Southeast Asians can speak at least 2 or more languages, so they would choose to go to China, like English and Chinese. Whereas I'm not being racist, but like Western people, like Caucasians, whites, or like Europeans, they can speak like multiple language, but not mainly Chinese, or like any Chinese dialects. So I guess Southeast Asians, they can relate more to like Chinese.
Okay.
I think.
I'm just trying to think how it relates to a global supply chain. That's all. I just let me. Okay, good. Okay, someone. Let me digest that. Jason, you're in the same group. What were you talking about? Is Jason there?
Yeah. So what we got for the first question is, how is China relevant to the global supply chain? China is looking to improve their infrastructures. Let me just bring up the plan.
Yep.
Yeah. So like, it would seem like they're trying to, how to say it, the next level of industrialization. They're trying to move away from like the low cost manufacturing. So they're looking to like robots, power equipment, energy saving vehicles and whatnot.
Yeah.
So how will it affect is they're trying to gain, I guess, more developed countries will look to them as the main source, the main place to source their equipment or their parts. I think that's how it will affect. And then all the low cost jobs and manufacturing processes will go to other countries like Malaysia or Vietnam.
Okay.
Is that good enough?
Actually, I think part of what you're saying is that the 2025 plan affects a lot of the industrial goods. You're talking about machinery, heavy machinery, the heavy industries.
Yeah.
It's not just the
robotics and
correct. It's not just the light consumer electronics that you buy in the local electronics store, which is currently doing anyway. And so supply chains in those areas are going to be affected. Okay, let's go breakout number 3. Dan's George is Shu Mai. Wait a minute. Let's break out 2. Let's Abby, Nicole, you had something to say. Abby, is Abby there? Can we hear from Abby, please? Hello?
Okay, I'm here. Yeah. Hello, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hear me?
Question, yeah,
Oh,
question one or two, either one. What was your thoughts, Abby?
okay. Actually, Nada was mentioning something about relation of China to Africa, but I couldn't really pick up that. But in my mind, there's like China now is no longer considered as a low cost wages country. So what they can do is, I mean, the population there no longer accept low wages right now.
Correct.
And then by 2025, probably they have to do something on innovate. They have to, their labor cost is already increased. So what they need to do is to upgrade their technology so that they won't depend, I mean, they don't rely a lot of foreign technology. So what I think is they have to upgrade their this technology, especially I remember in your video, you have mentioned that 80% of renewable energy equipment will come from China. And also there will be a lot of industrial robots and things like that. So it's a shift from low wages country to higher technology. So that, I mean, currently the high technology probably come from, all the time is come from US or Europe, but in the future it won't be. So it's China. Like Huawei have the 5G and the Huawei is also going to all over the world. But they have the technologies. I believe they have the specialist. They have the technology. And I also read one article that they have the technology on this invisible material where they can use it on their military. In terms of this is an invisible material that when you wear on, then you can be literally invisible, something like that. So I guess it's moving towards higher technology rather than low wages.
I hear what you're saying. That's a very good point you're saying there. Okay, let's who else would like to say something? It's Any, Mini, Miny, Mo, Mira from Group 6. Myra.
Yes. Yes.
One or two. What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on the 2025 plan or a particular sector and its effect on global supply chains? Or maybe there's no effect. What is your thought?
The 2025 plan is most focusing on high-tech products, right?
Yes.
So I feel like the sector that will be that will get the biggest impact will be related to that, like artificial intelligence or communication, something like that.
Okay, that's good.
And yeah, other related tech sector as well.
Okay, Mira, thank you. Jian Zhao, are you there? Or Neela from Group 8. Group 8, someone from Group 8. Quick. Okay, anyone last comments?
I just want.
Oh, sorry. Did someone say something?
You go, Zo. Go first.
Okay, because I'm from Group 8 actually. Yeah, so my group mates and I think that the Made in China 2025 plan will definitely have an impact on the global supply chain. Because when it comes to high-tech products, China will be entering the global market as a very strong competitor. That there will be less importing but more exporting out of China.
Yeah.
As for the supply of the lower tech products, we believe that China will still likely to retain a sizable share of production. But we believe that these sectors will likely to shrink over time as they will receive less government funding in coming years. So textile companies might need to shift their production plant away from China to other developing countries rather than just relying on China alone.
It's interesting you mentioned that. It's a very good point, because talking to my friend in Vietnam, he was telling me that like he sources textiles from Vietnam selling into Spain. Okay. And he's telling me 70 to 80% of the materials of the textiles that he sources comes from China. And so the mills in China, they create the fabric, and then the fabric goes to Vietnam, and then it's just cut and sewed, and then it's shipped off to Europe. So it's amazing. Maybe the 2025 plan will have the effect of de-emphasizing the importance of those mills, and in time, more fabric mills will be located more in the other countries. India, Bangladesh, Southeast Asia, Vietnam, I don't know. But, you know, the growth of the fabric mills in China will not occur, because you can see from the China 2025 plan, it's not a priority. It's not one of those 10 industries. It's actually a dirty industry, not what they want. So, okay. These are macro issues. Remember, last week and this week, it's very, very, very macro, not that micro. So just be aware of that. And so if we're trying to get your teeth into micro issues, we're definitely going to get a lot of that in the next 10 weeks of the course. So just keep that in mind. Let's just have a break for another 7 minutes. And when we come back, I think we're going to have to skip the robotics and go straight into the blockchain. I've already made a video on the robotics, so we can post that. The video just goes for about 10 minutes. Let's see how much time I got. Let's have a 7 minute break, back at 9:12, and then I'll see you then, and let's go for the home run, shall we? Okay, see you back at 9:12. Okay, we're back again. Is everyone here? You hear me? Okay, quickly, we're going to go in our last stretch. Before we go home tonight, there's two things to do. Number one is, can you indicate in your chat room if you are looking for a group still? Okay, can you do that so everyone else can see who is looking for a group, so we have full transparency, so we can not waste your time on this? Okay, so if you're looking for a group, put your name in the chat room. Okay, if anything, at this stage we're looking for about 8 groups, so just keep in mind we've got a group number 1 to 8. If you feel that you have formed a group, then you can tell me your number. Now, I just want to think, or you can tell me your group name. We can give you a number later. All right. I don't want you to feel as though that you're first to form a group, you got to present first. We can allow you to select which case studies you want to present. Okay, so that's the groups, number 1. Number 2, your feedback is very, very important, and questions that you ask at the end of the session. So we make sure we have time for that. And I'll be happy to record a podcast that goes through those questions if you feel that it's taken up too much time in the class. But the feedback is very, very critical. Since you're online and you don't get to see me in the class, it's very not as fun. Okay, just a few things about robotics. I've made a video on that, and in that video I actually talk about some examples of what I've seen in the factories. And for example, we've got here, okay, so we could, the point I want to make here is that the factory at the top is actually used in machines to actually test the materials that are arriving in the factory. That is every one of those 20 cells that goes into the hoverboard battery, where the battery, the one at the bottom, is actually receiving the battery, and you don't know what's inside, and you don't know, it says Samsung, but no one knows if it is really Samsung. But this machine at the top is actually testing the impedance and the resistance and the charge in every one of these batteries before they're assembled together. So there's a difference in the way that two factories, they're making the same product, but they've got machinery doing different things. Another example of the two of automation in factories is like these two machines here. Can you all see that? Can you all see? Can you see yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right. So the point here is that the machine at the top is actually doing the work of 3 people, but it takes 1 person to run that machine. So basically, you got a person and a machine replacing 3 people. And the machine at the bottom was the same again. But notice these machines are actually part on the assembly line. They're not replacing the assembly line. They're replacing some of the people only. So I just want you to keep that in mind. When we talk about robotics and automation starts with number 1. Let me write this down here. I think I can write this down. Let me just. Let's have a look. Robotic, it starts with number 1. It starts with testing. All right. And number 2, simple assembly. And that's what we're witnessing here. But what you're not witnessing is actually complete. So the big thing I want you to take away is, yes, robotics is happening around the world and in supply chains, but for the most part, what I've witnessed is 1 and 2. I've very rarely witnessed number 3. You would see 3 more in the car manufacturing, but not necessarily in the consumer electronics manufacturing. It's not widespread. Okay, so just keep that in mind. so the point I want to do here is that, you know, some factories have better conditions than the other. The biggest difference, what is the biggest difference between these two factories? Just warm you up because it gets very operational next week onwards. What are the two big conditions between these? What's the biggest difference that you see between these?
More crowded-ish and more manual.
Well, they're both manual. But what's the other difference?
I mean, sorry. Oh, sorry. I thought that this thing was moving. I thought there was a conveyor and stuff. Sorry.
Hygiene. One has like a shower cap, and the other one.
That's true. Absolutely.
Like procedures.
Safety procedure. Yep.
The procedure. Yeah, you've got.
Yeah,
Well,
safety, health and safety.
Yeah, there seems to be more documentation at the one at the bottom, but there is documentation in the one at the top too. Which one looks cleaner?
Bottom one.
Bottom one, yeah.
Bottom one.
Definitely cleaner than the top one. Okay. Now these are two factories, and you know, in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to talk about the audit I did on these two factories, and we go into that in more detail, and you can actually see the outcome of the whole audit and a case study that we ordered a product from one of these factories and what happened after we ordered the product. So we're going to talk about that, I think not next week, the week after. So that should be fun. Okay, just want to let you know where we're going. Very operational where it's coming up. Okay, just a key takeaway. I want you to think about the R&D has been a missing ingredient in a lot of innovation that's occurred in China and other developing countries. And the reason is that it's driven a lot by the governments in these countries. R&D, 2020-25 plan, very infrastructure, very top down. If we do any R&D, it's part of a foundation, it's part of a center that the government has set up. It's not something that private companies set up. But increasingly, you've got the private companies coming out of China that are starting to do their own R&D like they do in the West. Number two, China leads the world in robot production and robot use. But I want you to realize that just putting a robot in a factory is not the answer to actually make a supply chain sustainable. Even HTC's factory, I've been into that many, many times in Taiwan. And when they first put robots in, they were only using it for testing and inspection. They still had their 19 assembly workers on each line actually assembling the smartphones. It's not fully mechanized with a robot. Okay, so just once you realize that deployment of robots comes at different stages, testing and inspection, and that is very, very common, very, very widespread. Then there's light assembly, like I just showed you, those machines that replace 2 or 3 people, but one person operates the machine. And then you've got major assembly like you have in motor vehicle plants, and they, you know, heavy industry, and they definitely need robotics, as we know that. Okay, so this is why I want you to realize that, you know, robots don't just replace people overnight. It depends on what you're making. It depends on the supply chain, where it is at. For most consumer electronics, robots are not a major part of manufacture of the supply chain. Okay, it's more in the heavier industries rather than the light industries. Number 3, Chinese factories are slowly getting it. Quality still need OEM experience as a teacher. More about that in weeks to come. But I just want you to realize, you know, I keep mentioning China, but, you know, like the big point takeaway today, that China supplies 70 or 80% of the materials that go into textiles in Vietnam. So we could talk about Vietnam the week after next, and you're still going to be affected by China. Okay. China still supplies India, Bangladesh with several amounts, you know, materials coming out of fabric mills for textiles. So in some ways, when you go back to first year suppliers, China is still a major source of the global supply chains. Okay, so that's the part A. Now I want to just briefly introduce to you part B. And I made a video about this. How many of you watched the video? Thumbs up for watching the video. Who watched it? Come on, own up. Come on, you all did it, didn't you? Good. Okay, good. It took me 6 hours to make the video, all right? So you needed to watch the video, okay? A lot of cutting and editing and everything, all right? Okay, so we've got 20 slides here. We're not going to cover all of them, all right? Remember, there was 3 videos, am I right? 3 videos. Which one are you being assessed on? Number 2, number 3, right? Not number 1. Okay, so maybe some of you thought, okay, I'm not going to look at number 1. That's fine, we can do that. But I'm going to take you through these slides now. So let's go through them, shall we? Okay, remember, blockchain and the supply chain. Remember, the supply chain has various steps. And because of its varied nature, that is, you're actually moving goods between organizations, you're moving goods between different entities, then you have different legacy systems, silos of information, it's paper-based, there's lots of redundancy, duplication of efforts, discrepancies, and it's vulnerable to tampering. So there's all these issues. Now, not all of these issues make it that, oh, you need a blockchain. Blockchain isn't the solution to all of these issues, but it's just one of many solutions. What does the blockchain try to do? It tries to centralize the actual control over the data that is entered into the system and any changes that is made to the system. And when we do that, then it's likely we can actually speed up the entry of data into the system, we can reduce any errors that are made, and also we can speed up access to updates of data in the system. So there are benefits that can come by using a blockchain in the supply chain. Now, some of you may say, well, why can't we do that with big data? Yes, we can do that with existing information systems, and we can try and centralize all of these problems in an information system like a shared ledger, but it may not have that control over the permission, who has permission to make changes to the system, who does not have permission to make change. It may not have control over errors that are put into the system. And the blockchain can help overcome those problems. But just remind you that there are building blocks, there are benefits and case study examples. And I did cover these in the video, and just I want to highlight some of the issues now. With the building blocks, there's any one of you can study computer science and I'll teach you. You could spend years learning about cryptography. And that's been around for decades or longer, ever since the world wars at the start of last century. Cryptography was being used. All right. Oracles are origins of data, or gates that create data that go into a blockchain that cause a smart contract to be finished, to be triggered, or something like that. And then there's consensus mechanisms, and that's where people agree. How do we arrange the agreement that the data that is in the information system is the correct data? So these 3 things are needed for proper blockchain and smart contracts to work. Now, I'm not going to talk about cryptography. You can spend more time on that if you want to go into that. But all you need to know is that the SHA-256 hash algorithm is a common one that is used in a lot of blockchains now. It's used in the Bitcoin blockchain, and it's used in most of the private blockchains, Hyperledger Fabric network that's used in a lot of supply chain blockchains as we speak. There is a block and then there's a blockchain. And basically the hash algorithm is the special secret sauce that connects block 1 with block 2, with block 3, with block 4. Okay, and the algorithm is not the data. The algorithm creates a hash from the data that's actually in the block, and then that algorithm becomes the cement that connects the blocks together. So you cannot go later and change the data, because that would change the hash and suddenly it will become disconnected from the next block. And that's basically what a blockchain is. Okay, 3 parts. You have the header, which is the nonce, the data, and then you have the hash algorithm that transfers the data into a special code, and it's the code that actually connects the blocks together. Okay. Oracles, second part. Oracles are very important in the supply chain. They are things like hardware. Oracles are an RFD device. If you go into Singapore and you're driving in Singapore, what happens if you go into the CBD? Your smart reader on your dashboard in your car connects with an overhead lanyard and you get charged for going into the CBD in Singapore. Is that right? Am I right? Okay, that's what RFID is. It's a technology. And so that bridge in Singapore your car goes under is like an oracle. That's what we mean by an oracle. An oracle is something that triggers a data event. That's it. And it could be software like market data or other things online, or it could be human. It could be someone actually saying that something has occurred, like a quality control gate. It could be an inspector at the shipping yard that is inspecting your goods. And then they scan your goods with a barcode. And then that becomes an oracle that creates a data point that goes into the blockchain. So oracles are very, very important. And then you've got the foundation, that is the consensus mechanism. What do we mean by that? Well, we all know about Bitcoin. That's a public blockchain. And the consensus mechanism for the public blockchain is basically the 8, 9, 10,000 miners around the world. Even as we speak right now, there's 8, 9, 10,000 of them around the world currently just doing a proof of work to create that hash algorithm to mine the next block in the Bitcoin blockchain. Just so that next block can hold all of the transactions that have occurred in the last 12 minutes. Transactions between people, like I send you a Bitcoin, then the block registers a transfer from my ledger to your ledger in the Bitcoin blockchain. Then that gets created into a SHA-256 hash algorithm, and then that gets connected to the block, and then suddenly the blockchain gets one block larger. And you've got miners all around the world fighting to actually become the miner that creates that hash 256 algorithm to connect the next block of transactions. And then they get rewarded with the block. So that's a public blockchain. Most of the blockchains used for supply chain are private. Actually, all of them are private, the ones that have been put in place. And the most common one are the Hyperledger framework that IBM works with a lot. And Ripple is a very common one in the fintech network. Ethereum is still a public blockchain here. So what's the difference between a public and a private blockchain? The big difference is a private blockchain is like all of you together tonight, let's create a consortium. Our consortium is, let's call it MGM 5698. The MGM 5698 consortium, that is, all of you now become consortium members. So now all of you, if we want to transfer some good from one person to another and create data and create a blockchain, then all of you have to agree that that data transferred from one entity to another, or that supply chain moved, that oracle of data came in and caused an update in that data, then all of you have to agree that that data point took place. And then that's a consensus, but it's private. I'm not inviting the public to come to a consensus on this. I've actually invited all of you to agree on all these data updates. And why would I get all of you to join this consensus network? Maybe because Sarah, you are the shipper. Maybe Joanne, you are a third-party inspector. Haley, you are a retail establishment in USA. And Kun Tan, you are a supplier. And Emma, you're supplier number 2. And Agia, you're supplier number 3. And Jessica, you're supplier number 4. And you've suddenly, it's a consortium, and it's very, very important that, you know, maybe supplier 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe you're supplying various components that go into one product. So it's very, very important that we have agreement on where each of your suppliers are in terms of updating your data, and that we don't have any errors, okay? And so that's why we have a consortium to agree on data updates. And some of you are probably thinking, well, that's kind of strange. Don't we want to keep it private? We don't want one supplier knowing what another supplier is doing. Yes and no. We're not talking about competing suppliers here. We're talking about suppliers that are supposed to be cooperating in the supply chain. So they're not competing with each other. Okay. Kuntan, you might be supplying the pen top. Okay. All right, Emma, you might be supplying the pen bottom, okay? So it's not like you're competing with another supplier, but it's very important that you each know that your component is being updated when you actually transfer your goods to my assembly operation. And then the blockchain registers that change in ownership, or the movement, or the shipment, or where that shipment is. Okay, so that's what I mean consensus. So even though we have a private blockchain, we still can have an allowance for consensus to occur among the people that have permission to update the data. Okay, so here's a question. Which aspects of digitalization do you believe can drive the most value? Well, guess what? The answer to this question, I think this is less than 18 months old, was supply chain visibility. Blockchain for the supply chain is one aspect of digitalization. And the video I showed you earlier, remember the one that is in the sequence to watch next in the MGM 5698 playlist? Remember that? Yes? Okay, that one. They're talking exactly about this, digitalization. They're not talking about blockchain. What they're actually talking about is an example of digitalization where Pivot 88, that is a software as a service company, you contract them, you pay them lots of money, they will send people into your factory, and then the factory workers are trained to actually update their tablet at various points during the day, or when various gates are passed with a particular order. So if the assembly for an order is finished, then the inspector with the tablet's got to come along and then update the tablet immediately. Then the customer of that order, which may be Quicksilver in the USA, can open up their computer screen at the exact same minute and find out where the order is in the supplier's factory. That's what we mean by digitalization of the supply chain. And you're probably asking, well, how does that make the product better? Like, how does that help Quicksilver or the vendor in USA get the product faster? Like, just because they know that something has occurred electronically, that doesn't mean the product will get there faster physically, right? So watch that video. in the next few weeks, because in that video they talk about how they get the benefits of this digitalization. Okay, let me repeat. All right, I told you what this company does. In that video, they talk about how they're getting benefits from this digitalization process. And in a nutshell, the benefits, I want you to think about that. Maybe I'll ask you next week. You think about, what do you think the benefits would be if we are able to update every hour of what's going on in a supplier's factory on a tablet, and the agent in Hong Kong can check on the computer what's going on, the vendor in the USA can check on the computer what's going on, the shipper can check on the computer what's going on. With that knowledge, do you think they can do things better? I want you to think about that. Don't just assume that digitalization makes everything better. I want you to think critically about this. And I think this is probably a project that I would like a group to do, and that's not listed in the list of projects. And that is key areas of digitalization in the supply chain. And my job would be for you to do a case study on what Pivot 88 is doing. And we can help contact Pivot 88 to see if they can, you can interview them. Put your hand up if you think you'd be interested in that. Who would be interested in that? Anyone? Going? Anyone? Okay, we've got one person. Okay, so think about that, all right? So I can... Guys, the sky's the limit when it comes to what you can do your project on. But long as you do something on something that is relevant and value added to your career, you hear me here, all right? Don't do something that's old and that everyone knows about, okay? So this digitalization of supply chain is new, and these are important things. Like an example for that project would be to start in terms of this graph. Like, you know, this is an example of why digitalization is important, okay? Okay, moving along, supply chain benefits, and I talk more about that in the video, and you watch the video so we can go very, very fast through this. But I talk about DAT, that is documentation, the audit trail, accessible, transparency and trust, DAATT. And I think in the video I talked about DTTAA, is that right? Yeah, you know that. And now I know which one of you watched the video, because you know that I had it that way around. Yes, congratulations to those of you who did that. All right. So, and we made that simpler by talking about pain points. Pain point, if you're a consultant and you're going into a supply chain, your job is not to solve everything. Your job is to find out what is their main problem and solve that one at a time. You're never ever going to be a successful consultant if you think that you can go in and solve 100% of a company's problems. You can never do that, okay? Your job is to maybe to go in there and actually help the company find out which problems should they be solving first, okay? And then maybe you hire in a third party to actually solve that problem, like IBM, like a Big Four consulting firm. Your job might be a person that goes in to troubleshoot what's going on. You don't always, many different ways of being a consultant. Okay, these are all different supply chain pain points. I talked about them in the video. And what was very, very important was the areas of interest in the blockchain. And you can see traceability, visibility of the data, satisfy regulatory requirements, and ensure ethical compliance. And here I actually talked about, well, you know, here's another way of mapping what is important. And if anything, what is important is tracking, provenance. Now, provenance is all about tracking the origin of something. So, for example, the phone, something goes wrong with the phone, and maybe there's a problem with the battery, like what Samsung had 5 years ago with its Galaxy Note 6, was it? Or yeah, 6, and they had the fires. Remember that? And so it would be good to be able to trace which batteries and which supplier those batteries came from, but more importantly, which batch in the supplier's operations did it come from, and which month were those batteries produced. Because you don't want to actually have to do a recall on every smartphone. Maybe you only have to recall the smartphones that were sold between October and November. Of course, in Samsung's case, it was such a public disaster that they just had to stop the shipment of the whole model because it was just out of control. But for a lot of products and for a lot of brand names, they cannot afford to do that. All they could afford to do is, if they can use blockchain, to find out exactly when exactly was the faulty product produced. Was it a certain batch, a certain month, a certain week, a certain day? Was it a particular assembly line? Then they can trace that back, and then they don't have to recall every product. They can just recall certain products with particular serial numbers. That's what we mean by tracking provenance in the supply chain. And you can see that's a very, very key area in a lot of global supply chains that they think blockchain can help. All right, so that's something I didn't talk much about in the video, but I just thought I'll give you a good example of that. Something that's not so important, maybe just contract labor procurement, loyalty programs, carbon credits, things like that. So there are issues where blockchain can create a lot of value at the top and much less value at the bottom. Now that's what I'm inferring by the fact that the issues at the top have high adoption, whereas the issues at the bottom have low adoption. Okay? So just because blockchain is new and fancy, it doesn't mean that people are using it for everything. It doesn't mean that SAP and Oracle systems are being replaced. Companies still need to use their ERP systems. Blockchain is not a replacement for that. Okay, blockchain is kind of something that overlays that, and it may actually connect several ERP systems together. And that's why there's still issues with interoperability and making sure that if we're going to put a blockchain in a supply chain, we need to make sure that the system that entity A is using is interoperable with the system that entity B is using. And that is not always the case. All right, in the video, I talked about simplifying these pain points and thinking about, well, these pain points have uses according to whether we're talking about the product, process, information, or cash flow. Okay, provenance is very big on the product flow, and then the process flow is more on the QC and knowing where different quality gates need to be triggered, especially in cargo integrity and security. Information flow, very, very important for digitalization. So it's just information, right? But if you watch that video, they talk about how digitalization can help make improvements in the supply chain. More detail, those 5 pain points can be related to any of these areas here. Okay, so if any group you want to look at blockchain, there's ample areas or space to go into detail, and I can show you the project that was done on blockchain last year, but I would expect you to go one step further and actually develop it even further than that. Okay, just giving you some suggestions for your group work. All right, by the way, the group that did the project last year, this comparison table came from their project. So I'm just acknowledging that. And they did a good job in comparing what Walmart, Carrefour, Maersk, UPS, and Pfizer were doing with the blockchain. And this is 18 months old. And I can tell you now that what companies are doing in 2020 is even more than what these companies were doing 18 months ago. Okay, so there's always plenty of work to do in this area if one group wanted to choose the blockchain. Okay, and the example I gave you at the end of the video was very, very important, was the example of the wine bottle. Now, any of you doing international marketing? This is I would say that this is a good example of where supply chain and marketing are connected, where if we can actually use the blockchain to track where that wine comes back to the vineyard, we can watch on the YouTube the actual vineyard, we can actually watch the farmer, we can actually hear from the farmer and find out which grapes are used in that bottle. That doesn't necessarily make the wine better, does it? It doesn't make the wine better. It doesn't make the wine delivered faster. It doesn't make the wine cheaper. You with me? What it does do is actually create a product surround where we can actually market that wine internationally and then differentiate this wine from other wines. So here is the question to you. I want you to put your thumb up if you think this is a predominantly a global supply chain management issue. I want you to put your hand up if you think this is a predominantly a international or marketing issue. Thumb for supply chain or hand for marketing. I see some hands. Okay, most of you are studying international marketing, right? Okay, good, good, good. Okay, you may want to talk about this in your international marketing. This is where supply chain overlaps with marketing. You know, the blockchain doesn't make the wine get delivered faster. It doesn't make it get produced more efficiently. Okay. All right. The blockchain creates a secured information channel for the customer to know more about where the wine came from. And then that enables the wine merchant to charge more. Like, this is really marketing, more so than supply chain. So I just want to leave you with that. I just want, and I don't want you to think that, blockchain is just marketing. It's not just supply chain. It can help the supply chain, but I just want to I want to show you how supply chain is not always separate from marketing. Okay. And this is a good example where. Okay, so let's key takeaways. All right, remember, blockchain, it's a specific technology. It doesn't replace ERP. It doesn't replace SAP. It doesn't replace Oracle. And Oracle and SAP systems are and the Microsoft systems are the dominant ERP supply chain systems used around the world. Okay, blockchain doesn't replace that. The blockchain is supposed to complement that. And it's a way of helping to overlay a governance mechanism so we can improve documentation, trust, tracing, audit trail, and accessibility. And for the most part, so far, it has gained widespread adoption in food industry and shipping and logistics. So for some food, it can be traced, winery, turkeys, but how can you trace cabbage and other leaf products when 25% of the cabbage that comes off the ship in Singapore is sent to garbage? You with me here, all right? So don't just think that, oh, it's all food, okay? There's going to be horses for courses. It's going to be specific to various food items, but not to other food items. And the last thing I haven't mentioned here, is that obviously there's a marketing angle to being able to track the provenance of the product that you buy in the shop. There is a product recall angle for supply chain if you can track the provenance of a product in the shop. I'll leave you with that. Any questions on that last part? Questions? I've got a question. Any questions? Come on. It's 9:53. You have 10 seconds to ask a question. Come on. We want a question. Someone who hasn't asked a question, please. I can't hear you.
Sir, actually, I have a question.
Good.
I have limited knowledge of SRP software, actually. I have a little knowledge on ERP background.
Yep.
So, but I don't see the distinctive differences between blockchain in supply chain management and ERP system in supply chain management in terms of their benefit, because they both serve almost the same benefits. So how does blockchain, why is blockchain better than ERP per se? Or like, why can't we just stick to ERP? Because ERP is also in business integrated, it's also a business department integrated between, all the business department. It's not silo effect and benefits like that. So if you were to simplify and, describe or segregate blockchain between ERP, like how would you differentiate them?
That's a good question. I think the best way would be that, that's a good question. I think the blockchain provides an additional element of security over data entry. And you're probably saying, oh yeah, but the SAP system, that has password protected and only so many people can make changes and not make changes, right? But blockchain goes one step further. It is, once data is put into the blockchain, it cannot be changed. So with ERP systems, there is a read-write availability in the ERP systems. Read, write, or rewrite, right? With blockchain, once you put the data in, you cannot go back and change it. And if you want to make a change, you have to create a new block. And then it becomes more transparent. There's many other things, but I think that's the first thing that comes to mind. I'm just trying to be very crisp and clear to the biggest difference that I can see. That's a very, very good question.
So, regarding the cryptography that you've mentioned in the previous slides, for the previous hash and current hash, means anyone has no access to amend or edit any of the hash per se, is it? It's not amendable. It's not
No, no, you cannot change the hash because the hash is created by the blockchain system based on whatever data is in the block. The hash is a summary.
Right, because previously, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, because previously I understand it as it provides full transparency because if I were to amend any of the hash or block or algorithm per se, then the previous hash would not keep up with the, you know, the data or the codes.
Correct. Oh, yeah. What?
So
yeah.
it will not change and it will not.
Correct.
Yeah. So that gives me an idea of not providing. Yeah.
Correct. What you would say, what you should say is, if I were to change the data in the block of a previous block, then what the cryptography would do, or the SHA-256 would do, it was, oh, there's a data change here. It would actually create a new hash. And then suddenly, ding, it won't be linked to the other blocks. And suddenly, it would, like a chain, it will fall out. And then suddenly, well, hang on, all the blocks are no longer linked. Yeah. So the security is in the cryptography surrounding the SHA-256, not the data itself.
Right. So would you agree that
try again. I lost your voice, and these are very good questions. Thank you. Haley, can you try again? While we're waiting for Haley, hello, Haley.
basically the public has
can you just try?
Can you repeat the question?
Can you repeat your
Can you hear me
question,
now?
Haley? Yes, please.
Yeah. So would you agree that ERP has both security and privacy, but it's not just 100% complete or full? Like they don't provide, you know, it's just there are some leaks here and there. Just it's hackable, I would say. But whereas blockchain, they don't provide privacy at all. You know, public is still able to view the user's data. You are just protecting the logistics data per se, but the user's privacy, the public is still able to view the user's privacy per se. Would you agree that? In this context?
There's two things. Number one, the blockchains that are used for supply chains are generally private. They're not public.
Okay.
You don't share a supply chain blockchain with the public. It's different from cryptocurrency. It's different from Bitcoin. That's public. And
right. So it's also internalized by the company.
Correct.
So only,
yes. Yeah. So
right,
Walmart's blockchain is private and shared with only its supply chain partners. And then certain people, there's only certain designated people that have access to enter data into that blockchain. And certain people or certain hardware or software oracles. Okay, so it might be a person holding a barcode scanner, and then that creates data that goes into the blockchain of Walmart. The ERP system, you're right, there's not much difference with the ERP system, only that the blockchain, I think, has one more level of security. You can write into it, but you can write into it, sorry, you can read the past, but you cannot rewrite the past. What I'm going to do, and
we are via ID, say, like the same steps as ERP system, correct?
Can I,
like the
I
transaction
just add
ID.
some comment?
ID.
what I'll do, I've got a table that compares blockchain database with an ordinary database, and there's a lot of rows in the table that show that they're very similar, but there's just a couple of rows that they show that they're different. So let me get that and I'll post it to the Moodle, because I think it's good to get to the bottom of this, because I'm very skeptical myself. I'm excited to talk about it, but that doesn't mean that I agree that it's, I can tell you.
Can I?
Yes, please go.
Yeah, I like to comment because for those who are learning computer science, I think they are able to know what is the main difference between the ERP and the blockchain. The ERP is simply just a solution, and when an organization need to use the ERP, they need to customize to suit the organization. But for the blockchain, it's actually a product. It's just a solution versus a product. A product means he already make a ready-made product and with the objects in it and easy to use. Whichever probably smaller organization, they can adopt the blockchain because it already like customized for probably, let's say for example, supply chain is already customized for the supply chain to use it. Whereas for ERP, it's a business, right? Business got many sectors and many industry sectors. So when an organization, normally the big organization will only able to use the ERP system because it involves a lot of cost, labor, technical specialists, and the designers to design the ERP solutions to meet the any individual organization needs. So it's just one is customizable mainly, one is ready-made. Then you can able to apply it to suit your own organization, and it's like an object. I mean, if those software engineers, they can, taking the analogy of one is a programming language, C++, C, and then you use that programming language to make an object-oriented like C++, something like that.
Abby, you're in computer science,
Yeah.
are you?
I am.
That's wonderful. Okay. No,
but I'm not very well versed in ERP
yeah.
or blockchain.
No, I appreciate that. No, let me get this table, and which will help. The table is a comparison of the blockchain database and ordinary database, and whether it's supply chain or not, keep that separate. I think it's good to know that table comparison. Very good. Okay, this is. I'm glad we ended up with this conversation, because we need to do more of this in weeks to come. I just want to reward. There's two things we want to finish up with. You've got, some of you have put your groups. Have you entered in your name in the chat? If you have, still looking for a group, can you make a note in the chat room? Can you do that? Okay, Nikal, I think you noticed. And who else? Highly cut off real-time data can reduce lead times by Jane. Yes. And Abby, your comment about real-time data can reduce lead time in the supply chain. Absolutely correct. And actually, that's one of the things that they talk about in this video. All right, we're on the topic of digitalization. I just want to remind you, can you all see can you all see the playlist? Okay, this video here, applying blockchain to supply chain management, that is optional. Okay, you don't have to watch it, but if the group that wants to do a project in that area, I think you should watch that video. Okay, this video here, I would encourage all of you to watch it in the next week, and because they actually talk about digitalization, and the two people I know two of the people in this video, Stefan and Weitgeist. Weitgeist is the friend of mine that used to be a VP of global sourcing for VF Corp. The guy I told you about, the Mexican low labor and the Chinese skilled labor. You know that guy? Well, he's in this video here. And Stefan is the owner of Pivot 88, which has created this digitalization solution for Vite's factory in China to actually update what they're doing real time. And it's a wonderful conversation about how they talk about digitalization of the supply chain. So if you get a chance to watch it next week, I highly recommend you have a look at that. And as a group project, I would highly recommend that this be a topic area as well. So I think tonight, I hope you've got more clarity on where you're going in terms of the type of accessible tasks that you'll need to do, especially in terms of your group work. Please put your name in the chat room if you've found a group. If you have already, if you haven't found a group, if you have found a group, can you send me an email telling me your group, you name your group if you want to, the group members and who the group leader is, okay? And make sure that the group members or the group leader is contactable in the chat room in the Google Hangouts. Okay, so I want to confirm with you in real time so we know that, maybe we say group A, B, C, D, E, F, G, okay? It's for now, okay? And then we can then make sure and confirm the groups in the chat room or in the email, okay? So can you make sure that the leader of the group is very contactable? I mean, real time, in the same day that I send a message, okay? All right. Can you all go and put in your feedback for tonight based on the same link that you sent last week? Can I ask you to do that now, please? Remember, it's anonymous unless you want to put your name in. And because it's anonymous, that means you can write in any question you like. Okay, and what I suggest is just fill in 2 or 3 of those areas. That's fine. You don't have to fill in every 4 of those areas. If you don't have anything to say, you don't have to say anything in any one particular area. But I appreciate it if you have a question on your mind, or if you don't, that means I did a perfect job teaching, and so then you need to say, oh, O'Connor did a great job teaching. All right, so you do one or the other, then that's okay. But I prefer to see all your questions, because then that I know if you're learning something. Or what's important, because I'm actually updating the materials as we go from week to week. This video on the digitalization of supply chain, I only found this video 72 hours ago. Okay, it's not something I planned to give to you. And I found, I think, that's exactly what you need to, this is the perfect group assignment to look at this area of the supply chain. So please send me your group membership, and please give an indication in your email what topic you are interested in, okay? Make it very, very clear if it's not part of the list that I gave in the course outline. I just want to wish you so well. What I'll do, I'll actually respond to your questions before the end of the week this time. I'll create a video or an audio where I'm responding to the questions, so we can speed up our feedback that you get from the questions that you ask. What do you think? Good idea? Does that sound like a good plan? Okay, thank you. Good on that. Okay, can you fill in your details, your feedback, and happy to answer any questions anytime during the week or emails that you have. Remember, next week at about 8 p.m, we will have our guest, Megla. She's based in Singapore, and she will be talking about India. So make sure that you have some questions to ask her, so it sounds like that you're interested in India. Do you promise? Good idea? Okay. And that we'll spend about 45 minutes, an hour maximum on that session. Okay. Sound like a plan? Thumb up for that? Yes or no? Okay, I see you all. All right, so can you just fill in your feedback for the group, and happy to see you an email. Send me your group details. If you've made a group already, send them to me by tomorrow with your topic area, so we can start the conversation about how best you can do your assignment. And we're looking for groups of about 5.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, please. You can ask long question, quick question, any you like.
It's regarding the group work. Can I share my screen as well?
Please do. Let me just stop share, and then you can.
Right.
Yes, please do.
Can you see this screen?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, so for the group field work, the group report project, right? If you are going for option B, is it this one which consists of 3 components: COVID-19, blockchain, and product compliance risk? Or is it the one that you said in the slides just now, which there are 5 components?
Well, the one, yeah, that's true. The ones in the slide have been updated. I just put more. Oh, you can do any one of those, not all of them. Okay. So what
also among all these components, any of
them. I just put extra ones in because I thought, okay, I'll give you more options to think more broadly than those 3 in the original course document. And as I just said tonight, I've just digitalization of the supply chain. That's even another one that you can focus on. And that digitalization of the supply chain is probably best characterized by that video, YouTube video I just pointed you to.
So just to confirm, among all these options, we just need to pick one.
Yeah, I did say you can pick one, or there may be some other item that is not on this list, and you can just propose that to me and check with me first.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry for confusion about that. Remember, the most important thing about your group project is that, number 1, you're excited about it. Number 2, this is recent. It's about the future knowledge that you need to have to do very, very well in this area. So think about those ideas. Think about future trends, okay, rather than something that's in the past and that no one will value in the future. So keep these things in mind. That's how you can best make use of your accessible tasks, not just in this unit, in other units as well. Okay, look forward to receiving your emails, and I'll keep this open until you finish your. You can leave any time if you can just enter in questions in the magic form from Moodle, and happy to receive the questions for you. And I'll keep the chat room open for another 5 minutes. Happy to help. If you think that you got value out tonight, please make a note in your feedback, or the area that you found was most fascinating or interesting, please make a note on that too. This all helps in making sure that we create value for you. I'm trying to have a bit more energy next time too.
Actually, regarding the group, I think one of the problem right now is that a lot of the groups already have 4 members.
Okay.
Because initially, I think a lot of the groups thought that we were supposed to have 4, so we already grouped up into groups of 4. But now that it's 5, it's like quite hard for us to split.
Okay, if we've got 35, 4 8s are 32. We can have 9 groups, 9 5s are 36. There's 36. If there's only 36 students, and yeah, we can work with 9, that's fine. It's up. If you want to stay with 4, that's fine.
Okay.
4 or 5. I think that solves the problem. Sarah, what do you think?
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. remember, do email me or write in the chat room if you are not in a group. It's very important that we make sure that we have everyone in a group. And please, if you're in a group of 4, maybe if there's one person that can't find a group, please be reach out if you feel you have the sense to. Okay. I'm waiting. Is there anyone not in a group? Can you put your name in the chat room, please? Or actually send it privately to me is fine. I've got one person that's not in a group. Anyone else? Elaine, you asked a question. Which system is Salesforce is using? I don't know. I'll have to find out that one. Maybe you mean which ERP system they're using? Yes, that's a good question. But
I was actually confused between ERP and blockchain. Then after all, blockchain is you can't. I mean, obviously you can't change the data after you enter. So it means Salesforce is probably using ERP, but which ERP system I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
We're just comparing between ERP and
I know, and you know, if you go to Udemy, like you're in my Udemy course, and like just a note on that, you don't have to watch Udemy, all right? There's if you're in that Udemy course that you've joined, and I gave you the freebie to join, then there are certain videos and multiple choice questions that go with those videos that will help prepare you for the quiz in the middle of the semester. And I can tell you which videos they are when we get around that time. Okay, so that will help you. But if you go into Udemy generally, if you look at the most popular courses in Udemy, some of them are SAP, some of them are Oracle, and some of them are this Microsoft. In other words, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people around the planet taken these ERP courses so they can learn what an ERP system is. Interesting. Very popular.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're getting some groups joining. Yes, Elaine.
I was just thinking, like, is it safe to say that the blockchain has some sort of ERP system embedded on it?
I wouldn't say that. I would say the blockchain is simpler than an ERP system. An ERP system is more like a matrix, more like a matrix of authority and silos. The blockchain is more like a sequence chain of data over time.
Okay.
In some ways, it makes the blockchain less efficient. When you describe it that way, a blockchain is less efficient than an ERP system. It's actually data heavy because it's not configured. It's not configured with data efficiency in mind. The blockchain is configured with security in mind. And because of that, it takes up more space. It takes up more.
But what about in terms of scalability?
Haley, I can't hear you, sorry.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. What about in terms of scalability? Does both have almost the same scalability, or one offers larger scalability?
Okay, these are good questions. What I'll do, I'll follow up with you. I'll follow up with the whole class. We'll get it.
Yeah.
We get a table made up so we are very, very clear on the difference.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Very, very good. How are we doing with the groups? Are we all in groups? Yes or no? Nikhil, are you in a group now? Oh, good, good, good. Is anyone not in a group? So I think we have 9 groups. What I'd like you to do is just give a letter to, please send me an email of your group membership and give your group a name, okay? Give your group a name, okay? And also put down tentatively what topic you want to do, okay? Whether it's an A type topic or a B type topic. But if it's B, what exactly you want to do. Remember, I gave you lots of different examples that you can do for your group assignment, okay? You can go and interview a startup that is running a crowdfunding campaign for a hardware product that they are trying to produce. You know, just a supply chain can be between, you know, several individuals. It doesn't have to be a multinational. So just keep it simple that way. Okay. And if as a group you really want to look at the videos or do something on the IoT or startups, I've got over 50 interviews of startups that you could use in your project. So that's already written in there. So anyway, wait for your email. Can I say sayonara to everyone? What do you think? Yes? Good?
Yeah.
So you have 24 hours to send me your email with your group and your proposed topic. Or if you're not sure yet, maybe 1, 2 or 3 different topics that you're still trying to think about. Okay? Or ask me a question, happy to have an email conversation with you.
Okay, thank you.
What do you think? All good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's make this one. I think you can do very, very well in this. Remember, this is the 2nd year we're running this, so it's even better than last year already. The topic area, the things we're updating, everything. Last year we didn't talk about any blockchain. This didn't have any and had this conversation, so it's all good. Okay, have you all given your feedback in Moodle? I'll let you do that, and I'll say wish you good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you for joining. This is going to be a good one. See you next week.
Yeah.
See you next.
Hey all.
Yishang, all good? Nafis, all good?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yep, all good.
All good.
Okay.
All good. Hello.
Please don't hesitate. Send me an email if you have any questions. Happy to help.
Thank you, sir.
Happy to help. All good. Thank you. Hi, Ginny.
Oh, hi, sir.
Sorry about tonight. When's your exam tomorrow in the morning?
Oh, no, it's in afternoon, so it's fine.
Okay, all right. I think that last session turned out to be much better than the other sessions, didn't it?
Yeah, they are more open up and not really shy anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, much better. And also when you're talking about operational stuff, I think that's probably what they're expecting more of. So it's good. get away from the macro issues. So I understand. I think, I cut down the 2025. I really didn't fit too much this year, but anyway, things evolve. Blockchain's taken over. So next year, probably all of the second session will be on blockchain and the supply chain. So it's okay. Improving, learning. Yeah. Anything you wanted to tell me? How many,
No, I just showing you that.
How many do we have in
there's improvement.
total now? Because some of these in your list haven't attended. So maybe I ask you to sort and then make sure that the ones who haven't attended, just sort them down to the bottom. So then we have a list of those who haven't attended. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. It will be best. Yeah.
But there's only one.
Currently in my list, there are 43.
43. But today we only had 35.
34.
34. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. They want to do their groups of 4. So that's 10, 9 or 10. That's fine. We can do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or comments, Ginny?
I think it's good enough already for today. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll leave you with it. And if you can share a copy of that with me after the exam tomorrow, is that okay?
Oh, you mean copy of this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you to now. Yeah, I'll send it to you now.
When you get a chance, I'll let you do the exam. Ginny, thank you. And I'll chat with you next week. I hope you fix the internet thing. Sorry about that.
So, how about this Thursday? You asked me, right, just now? Like you.
Oh, just in.
Yeah, this Thursday.
Okay, I think. Well, the plan for just to talk about a plan for next week. That's all. If it's not.
Okay, so it's still on, right? This Thursday.
You don't have to, do you? If you think that. What we can do is maybe we can have a chat on. Okay, let's have a quick chat on Thursday afternoon. Okay. 2 p.m. on Thursday. How's that?
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
All right, that'll be great. All right, I'll Zoom you. We can use this Zoom, same Zoom one. Okay, is that okay?
This Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Or is it the one that in your email?
Either one. We'll use this one. We'll use the 5698 MGM 5698.
Okay,
this one.
sure. Yeah, I'll be there.
This same one will be great. All right, I'll see you at 2 p.m. on Thursday. And good luck in your exam tomorrow.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, sir.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.